You and I spoke just last week. You said President Obama had no goal, no strategy when it came to destroying ISIS. What did you think of what you heard tonight?
Well, I think it was a very weak argument. By the way, I'm astounded that Mr. Carney should say that the Free Syrian Army is now stronger. In fact, they've been badly,
well, that's not what I said,
damaged.
Senator. I said, if I could, sir, what I said is that we know a great deal more about the makeup of the opposition.
Come on, Jay, we knew all about them then. You just didn't choose to know. I was there in Syria. We knew them. Come on, you guys are the ones. It's your boss is the one that when the entire national security team wanted to arm and train them, that he turned them down, Mr. Carney, after.
Well, Senator, I'm not.
So
I think we have to agree to disagree on this.
No, facts are stubborn things, Mr. Carney, and that is his entire national security team, including his Secretary of State, said we want to arm and train and equip these people, and he made the unilateral decision to turn them down. And the fact that they didn't leave a residual force in Iraq, overruling all of his military advisors, is the reason why we're facing ISIS today. So the facts are stubborn things in history, and people ought to know them. And now the president is saying basically that we are going to take certain actions which I would favor, but to say that America is safer and that the situation is very much like Yemen and Somalia shows me that the president really doesn't have a grasp for how serious the threat of ISIS is.
Well, again, Senator, we're going to have to agree to disagree, and I think that, on the question of the residual force, there was another player in that, which was the Iraqi government, A. B. It was the fulfillment of the previous administration's withdrawal plan, C. And it was also fulfillment of the president's promise to withdraw from Iraq and not maintain a troop presence in perpetuity, which I think was pretty consistent with what the American people wanted and believed was the right approach.
And Mr. Carney, you are again saying facts that are patently false. The fact is, because Lindsey Graham and I and Joe Lieberman were in Baghdad, they wanted a residual force. The president has never made a statement during that or after that he wanted a residual force left behind. The Iraqis were ready to go. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee that the number cascaded down to 3,500. That was not sufficient to do anything but to defend themselves. And you, in your role as a spokesperson, bragged about the fact that the last American combat troop had left Iraq. If we had left a residual force, the situation would not be what it is today, and there would be a lot more.
Senator, I can posit with great respect for you that we disagree on that, and that you.
No, you
and
can't,
that you,
because you
sir,
don't
if
have
I
the
may.
facts. You don't have the facts, Mr. Carney. That's the problem.
Senator, I understand that you present the facts that you believe are true based on the argument that you've made for a long time, sir, that we should leave troops in Iraq in perpetuity. And that's just not what this president believes. And that's, obviously he was elected president to fulfill what he believed was right for our country and right for our national security.
That didn't mean it was the right decision. That means it was a bad decision.
I certainly understand that you disagree.
Where we are today. Well, it's not a matter of disagreement, it's a matter of facts. And you have yours wrong, and you have distorted them.
Jay, does the president believe at all, if a residual force had been left on the ground in Iraq, that we would not be in this situation now?
Anderson, I think it is basically a whitewash of history to suggest that there weren't periods of enormous chaos and fighting and bloodshed in Iraq when there were tens of thousands of American troops on the ground. That is a fact. And that was true in 2004, it was true in 2007. And it was true even when we had the highest number of U.S. troops on the ground. We cannot, the United States of America, ask our military to be a permanent occupying force in a country like Iraq. We have to get to a situation where we can help build up and assist an Iraqi security force, where we can put pressure on Iraqi political leaders to form an inclusive government, which they have taken steps to do, as was noted earlier, and then we can provide the kind of military support that we're providing and action that we're taking against a threat like ISIS as appropriate. But the alternative of leaving a permanent massive U.S. force on the ground in Iraq, not for 10 years, not for 20 years, but in perpetuity, is simply not sustainable financially, and it's not consistent with what the American people think we should do.
Senator McCain.
Again, Mr. Carney misstates the facts. We had it won thanks to the surge. It was won. The victory was there. All we needed was a force behind to provide support, not to engage in combat, but to supply support, logistics, intelligence. And by the way, the Korean War, we left troops behind. Bosnia, we left troops behind, not to fight, but be for a stabilizing force. And Mr. Carney neglects the fact that thanks to David Petraeus and Ryan Crocker, who, by the way, are very strong on this issue, that we won the conflict. And then by pulling the rug out and setting a date for withdrawal and bragging about it.
Excuse me, sir, but I think you've forgotten that the date for withdrawal was...
I think you've forgotten. No, the date for withdrawal, they always contemplated an additional date behind it, and you can ask Condoleezza Rice or George W. Bush. So
absolutely,
that's absolutely false too. And you didn't need to go through the Iraqi parliament. All you had to do was have an agreement because
Senator McCain,
we were there on the ground.